Are you a physician who wants more autonomy in how you practice or fulfillment in your life? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Change Physician podcast, where you can learn the mindsets, skills, and strategies to create the life you want without selling out your morals or values. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Cady, joined by my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro. And today we're going to talk about an issue that I think many physicians find themselves in, which include this idea that they may feel trapped and that there seems like there's not a lot of other options for them in light of their training and where they're, the route that they're taking. But in reality, there are more options out there, and we want to try to give this sense of hope, that we don't want you to feel helpless and hopeless in this scenario. So Dr. Cuccaro, I know you have some thoughts about that. Do you want to go ahead and talk on that topic?
Yeah, we talk about choice. The reason I'm kind of laughing is for people who don't know, I'm using that Zoom background thing. So I have a tendency to like ghost in and out, and it would be solved with having a green screen. But it's a kick. It provides a little joy in my life to see me as I'm your co-ghost. You know, I'm the co-ghost of this podcast.
Co-ghost.
Anyway, the co-ghost. But yeah, really, as a physician, we have a choice, and what is. And I went through this, so I kind of assume that there's other people going through this, also based on people I've talked to that have gone through this. But we tend to feel we get trapped by the debt, and we get trapped by the medical knowledge. And what I mean is you've now invested so much time, effort, and energy and money into a specific type of career path, i.e. to become a physician. And because of this, we often feel pigeonholed, meaning I have so much debt, and this is the only thing I know how to do. So now we're thinking we have this very narrow, specialized sort of set of knowledge that's only applicable to one little thing. And so we start assuming that there's we have no control over this situation. And then people are like, well, I have to work here because of my debt load, or I have to work here because of this. And the critical thing to understand as a physician is the more that you eliminate choices for reasons that aren't necessarily true, the less options you're giving yourself, and the less options you have, the more trapped you perceive yourself to be. And so it's really recognizing that we all have a choice. As a physician, even if you've been in school, say you're a neurosurgeon and you have, 7 years after medical school or whatever, 12, now we're looking at about 16 years of practice, or 16 years of investment at least. Mm-hmm. And then maybe say you have $500,000 in debt, you still have a choice to decide what you're going to do next. Meaning you can choose, you can actually take that choice of, hey, I'm going to make less money because it's going to protect me long-term for my health outcomes. Or I have these other outside interests. I'm going to do this other job here where my debt load may be higher. And the reason, again, that is so crucial, because the effect on your health when you feel trapped is absolutely profound. And I sort of introduced that idea into my story when we were talking about our stories and how we kind of found this Change Physician pathway. Is if you are sort of delaying the idea that I am going to suffer right now, so much so, sell my soul, and not because you are choosing to do that, but because you feel you're controlled or forced to do that, you're going to be affecting not only your short-term health, but there's no guarantee when you get to the end of that tunnel, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, that your life is going to be significantly different. In fact, I would wager that it could be actually worse, because there's almost like I don't want to say character assassination, but the more you kind of follow that pathway and the more you have that extreme sense of perceived helplessness, the less able you are to see all the potential opportunities now and later on down the line then as well. So you may lose your habits, you may lose your relationships, you may lose your friends. And so I just really want to emphasize that people have choices with this, even when you think you don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in America, right? I mean, or any other country. If you're in a country where you have some degree of freedom, You absolutely positively have a choice. Nobody actually chains you to your desk. Nobody actually chains you to your job. The challenge is people, sometimes these are difficult choices to make.
Right.
And that comes down to kind of understanding what your priorities are and what really is truly important to you.
Right. And I think this is a perfect segue into discussing just even the presence of this podcast is, giving you ideas. I think sometimes people might run into this blankness and they're not sure what are the other options. If you've never envisioned them for yourself and all you have been doing is what many of us have done and put the blinders on in life and just focus on the task at hand at that moment, and all you see is those around you doing the traditional same stuff that you've been doing in the same way, it doesn't lend itself to giving you a lot of options to reflect on to see if they fall more in line with you, with who you are and how you want to change your life. So I think by even presenting multiple stories of different types of physicians who have redirected, shifted, completely changed. There are many different changes that physicians make to be that change physician that is bringing more fulfillment and meaning in their life. And so I think that's sometimes what you need is a guide or somebody that is kind of demonstrating that there is another way, and so that you can try to put the steps in place that maybe they can even give great recommendations just from, might pick a nugget or two from their conversation about what it took to make those changes. And it's not always an easy transition, just like any change that we make as humans. That is the part of the struggle. But when you're excited about the change, the struggle is not so daunting, especially if you have a guide or you see someone else that's been doing it and gives you hope.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And because if you're not aware of something, you can't even think about it, right? And one of the great advantages that we have in this day and time with the internet and social media, and everybody's always talking about everything's bad, and it's really, these are all just tools, and it's how you utilize them. And what this has allowed us to do now as compared to 20 years ago, because it's not like the change physician journey is something new. There's been physicians who have been doing things differently and taking control of their practice and lives for decades.
Mm-hmm.
The difference, though, is now we can hear about them and we can be aware of the potential possibilities significantly easier. And the other aspect to it is it allows us to, it's easier to contact people, right? And so not only was it more, before pre-internet times, it was super hard to even become aware of the choices that you had. But then to actually contact individuals and even connect with them, because that connection becomes so key, was so difficult to do. Whereas now you can type in, I don't know, physician burnout, physician dissatisfaction, choices for a physician, non-clinical careers for physicians, or whatever, in a Google search, and you're going to have a host of different examples. So there's a lot of potential there. It's just making sure you know what the question to ask is. And the second part, there's an opportunity to connect with people. I know, I'm pretty sure this happened to you as well, but when I was going through my existential crisis of what my practice was like, one of the best things I did is I emailed people, like out of the blue, people who had no idea who I was. I may have read a book or saw them somewhere or whatever, and lo and behold, people would email you back. Now, not everybody does, but it was just so profound, is that someone would hear you and connect with you and tell you that you're not crazy to want something different. And it sounds so silly and so simple, but I'm telling you, folks, if just a little level of awareness, just deciding that you want to actually pursue, maybe, not even making the choice to, hey, is there a choice for me? How have other people navigated this pathway? And then reaching out and connecting with them can make a huge difference in your life. Another aspect with that is just, and we'll talk about this in another episode when it has regards to specifically FU money, but but when you have options, now, even if you're in a crappy place or a difficult practice environment, that changes how you interact and even your perception of what the environment is. Because if hey, there are other options for me, that perception of helplessness and that lack of control tends to decrease significantly. So that's just, I mean, that's just one little tiny thing that you can do to actually change a difficult practice environment for you.
Yeah, I have to say that calling out, I mean, really it's kind of in some ways it's kind of this masked plea for help. I think for, I don't want to say plea, but there's a need that we have sometimes when we reach out and we don't want to feel alone, or we're curious and we just want more information, maybe want guidance. But I did the same thing, and I put my energy into things that gave me joy, and working on online things and trying to educate and do what felt like me. But I just kind of put it out in the universe. I just threw these emails and I would, if I couldn't find them on social media, I'd call the actual clinic and leave a message with their front desk. And some people would call or email me back. And I didn't take offense to any of the ones. In fact, a lot of times I forgot who I sent them to, because I just sent out so many at times, that the ones that did come back to me have turned out to be very valuable, and some longer term than others. But they give you that little ounce of extra just feeling of not being alone, and feeling a little more connected to the physician community, which I think we have the problem we have is that we're so busy and so dedicated to patients that we're just kind of separated from each other in a way that really doesn't enhance our profession in the way that it could. So making that extra effort to just feel like, somebody gets me, reach out so that you have another connection. I think that's a very important part of the process, especially when you're going through this existential crisis that I think a lot of us go through. At least I can speak for myself and for you, because I know. But one thing I wanted to mention is that don't be surprised that at times in the environment that you're currently working, the people around you may not be in that same place of awareness. And perhaps if you have an enthusiasm for something, they may not express, depending on the kind of relationship you have with them, sometimes they may not get you. They may not understand it. They're still stuck in the place you were 5 years ago, or as far as the mindset, but the readiness for change may not be there. And so they may not have the same kind of enthusiasm that you have, or deep desire that you have. People can be scared and fearful of change, and they just want simplicity, in the sense for them it might be just that steady paycheck, which that doesn't necessarily always mean you're gonna have a steady paycheck. But anyway, I think it's important to remember that we do have more control than we think, and you're not alone when you go through this process. But also understand there's going to be people around you that aren't going to understand you.
Yeah, and I would say to that though is they may not understand you. On the other time, they may just be quiet.
Yes.
Right. So as long as you're not looking or seeking external validation of whatever your morals or beliefs are, or your values.
Yep.
Right. Because that's, as long as you're like, hey, this is important to me. This provides meaning to me. This is what I want, or this is what I find challenging in this practice, and this is what I don't find right.
Right.
If you're coming from a place, a value-driven place when you're stating this, and you're not seeking that external validation, then how they respond is less likely to, it's less important. Yes. So if they don't connect with you, which, as you said, some people might not, right? They may just be doing their thing. And physicians, we know those people who just seem to put the blinders on and just they just don't seem to care. Sometimes I think that they've just burned themselves out so much they can't see anything different. But on the flip side though, is there going to be people who will listen to you. And it's shocking when you have people come up and say, you were right. And you're like, I would never have guessed that this person even would have thought about that, or even really cared about this. I think that was one of the shocking things for me, is when I started really just saying, okay, what are my values saying, and how are they being violated in this environment? And it was so scary to choose to say something. But it was shocking how many people, I mean, they didn't get up like in some of those crazy movies where they jump on their chairs and start shouting, yes, yes. Instead, they'd wait until after and kind of find you in the halls. But even that kind of like, hey, you were right. Thanks for talking. It really, really meant a lot. Again, you're not seeking it, but I just want to counter is you don't know what the responses are going to be.
Sure.
So as long as you have a value-driven sort of approach where you are saying things or acting or behaving in ways that align with your values, you don't know what type of response you're going to get, but just as likely as you're going to get people who don't understand you, there's a good chance, particularly in healthcare where the environment can be so difficult. Don't be shocked if you have people that say, hey, thanks for saying something, or yeah, that makes sense, and I really appreciate what you said or did.
Yeah, no, I think actually saying, in the right context and with the right people. I mean, there's times where even just the way that care is being delivered, you might have something to say and you want to enhance it. And I know that I spoke to a clinician that just couldn't believe that the people around her weren't supporting, a very good value type of concern as far as the kind of care or the options given to patients. And that person felt really alone, and merely a phone call to this person literally just turned her life around. She no longer felt like she was crazy. So, I think communication, good communication with good values is, that it's a win-win for everyone. You can help out people maybe sometimes when you don't think you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I would probably end this episode is just encouraging you as the listeners to recognize, hey, we all have choices even when we don't feel like we do. And especially as physicians, we have way more choice than a lot of other people do. So we may feel like the specialized knowledge and there's nothing you can do, or I'm the only pediatric, microtubule kidney physician out there. And so I'm so specialized, there's nothing else, but that you're never trapped to that decision. There are more options. You just have to be open to hearing them. But to make those decisions is to understand, is really basing on who you are, is to defining what is that you want and who you are. And if you have some clarity there, making those difficult decisions becomes a little bit easier to do.
Totally agreed.
So, well, all right, folks. Well, thanks for joining us on The Changed Physician. I am your co-ghost, Dr. Cuccaro, with my host, Dr. Cady. And until next time, join us at thechangedphysician.com. And until next time, stay well.
Take care.